Because pi.
All advanced civilizations would know this figure, so what are the next three numbers?
And?
And the next number?
Okay, so it seems Boy Kavalier has already moved on to the next shiny thing. He's moving on from Wendy, and it's not unto another hybrid or synth. It's the Eye, which is kind of wild, because while the rest of the room sees a threat, he sees potential. Everyone else flinches when the creature bangs against the glass, but Boy is staring at it like it's an art exhibit and not as something he should be terrified of. And I get it. The Eye has that weird, creepy appeal. Even we as viewers are kind of obsessed with it. But for Boy Kavalier, it's deeper than that. Ever since he brought these species back from the Maginot, he's been fascinated with what the Eye can do and with its intelligence. But now, that curiosity has turned into something more, and something more personal. And when he looks at it, you can tell he's not seeing a lab sample. He's seeing a mirror, something like a worthy match, and maybe even a new companion. I mean, he's moved the creature to his own quarters, which should already raise red flags. Kirsch doesn't even get the full sentence out. He just asks if this is a precaution, and Boy shrugs it off like it's nothing and says that it's something like that, because he knows it's not a precaution. He just wants it closer. Everyone else on Neverland sees a monster, but Boy sees a possibility. And I guess you can hate him all you want, but one thing about Boy, he'll make use of any given situation at any time. Now, whether that's good or bad is a whole different conversation. Also, if you pay attention to the way he watches the footage of Isaac's death, there's awe in his voice, and not horror. The Eye orchestrated a death, one that served no direct benefit to itself, and Boy just can't stop smiling. He's so impressed, like the creature is playing chess while everyone else is stuck on checkers. Which is also interesting because when he first found out about the accident, his immediate reaction was about the 6 billion that just went down the drain. But the moment he realized how the Eye orchestrated it, and that it wasn't just an accident, it's like he stopped caring, and suddenly that 6 billion loss was worth it, because the Eye is offering something way more valuable. And we've seen the way he looks at the Eye before. It's the same way he used to look at Wendy. And this was back when he first brought Wendy online, with that same mix of intrigue and praise. But Wendy's not that anymore. Well, not to him at least. Because don't get me wrong, Wendy is still powerful. So she hasn't changed, but Boy has. And speaking of Wendy, she's also going through her own thing right now. She's unraveling, both emotionally and mentally in real time. And as she starts spiraling, he just tunes her out, which is also interesting because that used to be where his focus lived. He was coaching her, challenging her, and testing her limits. But now, his eyes are on something else, which is the Eye. But I think more than anything, Boy doesn't fall for people. I believe he falls for puzzles. And once he solves one, and once it stops surprising him, he's already moved on. And he's Boy Kavalier, so he doesn't need to announce it. But of course the silence is loud enough. And in as much as this fascination is very intriguing, it's also very dangerous. Because it means the Eye isn't just another alien to him. It's the new project. And it's quite understandable because Boy didn't hijack the Maginot just for hijack's sake. I mean, of course he wants to get under Weyland Yutani's skin, but he did it for the challenge, aboard it, and obviously the Eye gives him more than that. And of course, one of my favorite part was when it stomps out the digits of pi, and Boy loses it. I lost it too. Boy just lights up like a kid meeting their favorite celebrity. He's literally wondering what it'll do if only it could talk. He's already imagining the future, what it could become, and who or what it could possess. But I think the funniest part was when the Eye just pooped. Like, Boy was trying to get more answers. He kept pressing it with more questions about pi. And at first, it's playing along, but then it just pooped. Like it's saying, yeah, I'm done. Or better yet, you don't control me. And I choose when to respond and how I respond. Also, let's draw the parallel. Boy Kavalier is speaking with the Eye, or at least learning to. Meanwhile, Wendy is over there speaking with the Xenomorph. So everyone's got their own little connection going on, I guess. And I think the wildest thing he did this episode was actually saying it out loud, that he wants to transfer the Eye into a human being. Which sounds insane, but honestly, I think the Eye might appreciate it. It clearly hates being stuck in animals. And he's not going to pick a scientist. That would be too messy. He wants someone with a low IQ and expandable. So someone just smart enough to function, but dumb enough to control. So that's how far he's gone. Wendy realizes they are not premium. So while Boy Kavalier is falling for the Eye, Wendy is going through a very rude awakening. And I think it all started with one line, which then caused a massive shift in the room. After all that mayhem with Isaac and the fly, and of course all the other creatures being loose in the lab, she then walks into the lab expecting answers. And I think most importantly, safety. But what she gets is containment protocols and vague apologies. She was just told that there's been an accident, And I think seeing Isaac like that with his face and disfigured like that didn't help matters either. Because when Boy tries to downplay it, Wendy clocks it immediately that this wasn't just a system failure or random glitch. Something has definitely changed, and not in a good way. And I think for the longest time, Wendy has always thought of herself, and not just herself, but her and the other hybrids, as special, which they are. I mean, according to Boy Kavalier, each one of them is worth 6 billion. So yeah, they are special. But she always saw them as what she described as premium. And that line says everything. Because in her mind, there was always a hierarchy. First the scientists, then the synths, then the experiments, and then them, the premiums. The ones who were especially protected and above all of this. It also makes me wonder, where will Boy be placed in this hierarchy? Will he be part of the scientists, or will he be above everything as well? Anyways, now that Isaac is dead, Wendy's realizing they are not as special as she thought. And this place, as well as this program, doesn't actually value them. Not really. If anything, they see them as products, which is true, because they are, and suddenly the word premium starts to feel more like a lie than a label. So from there, you could immediately feel the switch flips, just like that. She's no longer trying to play by the rules or buy into Boy's logic. And I think another important thing was when she hears him talk about not scaring the others, all she hears is that they're not safe. Also the way Boy phrases it, like it's everyone else's fear. That's the problem, not the actual threat. It just pushes her further out. I also liked how she used the Xenomorph as a threat when she was trying to get out and the guards were sort of preventing her from doing that. It's also very funny when she even sounds polite when she's threatening people. She tells them calmly but firmly to get out of the way. And then, with just a sound, she speaks to the Xenomorph. And of course it responds by slamming its head against the glass. And I think another important line in that scene was she saying, "You can't just erase things." Because it's not just about memory wipes or data files. It's about being discarded. And I also think it's about what they did to Nibs as well. And then, in turn, about what they could do to her. And also about how suddenly the whole idea of being premium doesn't protect you when someone else decides you're a liability. So Boy may be bonding with the Eye, but Wendy is waking up to the truth of what they really are. And I think that's why the Xenomorph makes sense to her now. Not because it's beautiful, but because it's dangerous. And because it can't be tamed. Well, she can, but aside her, who else can? And also because, like her, it doesn't pretend anymore. But the interesting thing here is how much this mirrors Boy's own arc. Just like he brought the Eye into his private space, Wendy unleashes the Xenomorph from its cage. And it's not an accident. She lets it out, and it listens to her. It slams against the glass the moment she makes a sound. Not at her, but for her. And of course it comes to their rescue when it needs help. And then comes the escape attempt. She and Joe lead Nibs through the graveyard, where they literally see their own names carved into tombstones. I don't know whose idea it was to put the grave somewhere so easy for them to find. I mean, sure, to be fair, it was in the bushes, but it's still on the island. And these people can go wherever they want, so of course they were going to see it at some point. So yeah, I don't know whose idea that was. If I had to guess, maybe Sylvia? Because honestly, I don't think Sylvia is that good at her job. But when they do see the tombstones, it shifts something. You can see it hit them, even if they try to act like it didn't. Joe, especially when he kneels over Marcy's grave, you can tell he feels like part of his sister is really in there, which she is. And with Nibs, I don't even think Nibs can fully process what's happening. Like, she doesn't really have the mental capacity to grasp it. And I think Wendy is just over it at this point. So honestly, I don't think it was a good idea to put it somewhere they'd come across it so easily. It feels like the system has already decided how this ends for them. Like it's already setting the tone. And maybe that's the point, which is exactly why Wendy doesn't care anymore about what's allowed or what's safe. But we all know how the plan went. It falls apart just when they thought they'd made it. Joe had to turn on them, and he tases Nibs, effectively handing them over, and then Wendy snaps. And I don't think she snapped that way before, especially towards Joe. And after everything that happened this episode, the betrayal hits. Because this was her brother, and the one person she thought was still on her side. And just like that, she's caught between two betrayals. One subtle and one direct. Boy Kavalier, who used to study her like a masterpiece, now barely notices she's gone because he's more focused on the Eye. And Joe, who pretended to help her escape. Well, to be fair to him, he wasn't pretending at all. It was his idea from the very start. Remember, Wendy didn't even agree with it at first. But I think Joe was really just trying to do the right thing by saving his friends. But every action has consequences. And now we just have to see how those consequences play out between Wendy and Joe in the finale. But where we leave her, pissed and alone. But will she be grounded like Slightly and Smee? Or punished even harder? We don't know. But I guess we can all agree that Boy needs to be really careful on how he handles this. Because Wendy is not like the other hybrids. Her strengths, and what she's capable of, are on a whole different level. And above all, she's very pissed, so whatever happens after this is going to play a huge role in how all of this ends.